Extra stoelen staan ook nog daar. Ja.
Dat is niet zo.
Yeah, maybe some more people will come in. Welkom Erik. Yep. It's so nice to have a full house. Very nice. My name is Sibil Sträuli. I'm director of Bureau Europa, platform for architecture and design. And tonight we have an architecture evening. And I'm very proud that the students coming from Germany, from Belgium, and from the Netherlands are here. I know we had some very intense days already, and I heard you are a very great group collaborating and working together. So special welcome to you. Special welcome to our guest speakers. As part of the exhibition, we plan 10 women urbanists shape the modern world. This lecture explores how architectural ideas, methods and values are passed from one generation to the next. Through reflections on mentorships, collaboration and creative inheritance, the speakers will discuss the ways in which teaching and learning shape architectural practice and urban design. I'm very happy that we are here. This exhibition presents the lives and works, and I have to do this from Catja, always mention the names. I will do this. Luce Amarocha, Catherine Bauer, Uli Chaudhuri, Jane Drew, René Calustet, Blanche Lemko-Verginkel, Carmen Portinho, Flora Ruchard-Roncati, Jacqueline Tinbit, and Beverly Wills. They are presented here in this exhibition. But tonight we will listen to Catja Edens, the curator of this exhibition, Sibil Sträuli, Elsbeth Ronner, and Drie. I'm very proud that you are here. And I'd like to thank, and I have to mention this, that the exhibition is curated by Catja, but also in collaboration with the Curatorial Research Collective in Eindhoven. It was previously shown in Amsterdam and in Eindhoven, so I'm proud it's traveling, it's important. I hope you have a great evening. I think there will be many voices, and Catja will explain the rest because tonight she's not only speaker but also moderator. A big applause for Catja, please.
Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to see all your faces, young faces in the audience. I love it because we're talking tonight about education, architectural education, and the role of women in architectural education. Here on screen, we see Flora Ruchard-Roncati, one of the women featured in this exhibition. Here she is, I don't think she's actually teaching, but she's giving some sort of lecture. And to explain a bit about the exhibition, about tonight, I take you to my own research project, which is called And the Rest is History, on the archival representation of women in architecture. It's a PhD project that I do at the University of Antwerp, previously TU Eindhoven. And it's about history not being complete. I don't know about you, but I studied architectural history, and I know that you as architects and designers also get lectured in history, and this usually is a history of men. And it has remained so for a long time, and I started wondering, why is this? Weren't there any women? Weren't they important? Weren't they good enough? What's going on? And I was not the only one to start to think about this, and start to look again towards history and see what was going on. There have been a lot of efforts towards a gender-inclusive architecture history in Canada because these women architects, urbanists, and designers were there, but they were never featured in the books or in the exhibitions or talked about. So here you see like a timeline of books and exhibitions. This one is also in there, on women in architecture and urbanism. And if you start thinking about why these women were not included in history, you start realizing that there was no level playing field, that the situation for women was quite different than those for men. So there were gender-specific legal and financial obstacles for women, for example. I won't go into it too deeply because I want to offer the stage to our guests, but just read something like 1988, the Women's Business Ownership Act made it possible for you as women to take out business loans without a male relative co-signing. So before that, they couldn't start their own office because they couldn't take out their own loans. They had to bring a son, a husband, a cousin, a father. And also in the world of architecture itself, there were gender-specific obstacles and tendencies. We were just before talking about architecture prizes and how it took such a long time for women to win those prizes. Like, for example, in the Netherlands in 2018, Francine Hoeben was the first woman ever to win the BNAQ. So Big Plans. Big Plans is connected to my own research. It's like, a bit of a sidestep that I did with the CRC. Let's look at women that were working on this urban level. Let's see who those women were and let's feature them in an exhibition, because in the end it's all about indeed mentioning their names, showing their images, sharing their work, writing about it, speaking about it, making exhibitions about it. And what we saw in our research is that there was a couple of characteristics, like collaboration and networks, very typical for these women, in this case modernist architecture. A multifaceted practice, something that we will speak more about later on. And also an ideological drive, so emancipatory towards lower income workers, women, children, minorities. Modernism and urbanism, that was so important in modernism, offered the opportunity to build a new world with new opportunities and new space for these groups. And as you can see in this scheme is that these women were active in many fields, and almost all of them were also teaching. And I think everybody here will understand why this fits so well with the other characteristics. It's all about speaking about it, about sharing knowledge, about showing how things can be done. So it's important, or it's interesting to start to think about that. What is the importance of women teaching? So when you ask, where are the women in architecture? Like Despina Strategakos did in 2016, or Lara Schrijver this year, you will also wonder who or where were the women in architectural education. In the University of Delft, Technical University of Delft, there has been a period of stark awareness activism in this field in the 1980s. Here you see the women's studies, with in the middle Zaha Hadid, but also Anna Vos, Beth Gali, all women that were more or less influential, but all active in this form of feminist activism within the university, within architecture. Now, in the fourth wave of feminism, we can observe a renewed interest in this. So here, people that have perhaps visited the TU Delft know this corridor. It's a corridor with portraits of architects. There are no names with them, but they're hanging there almost like a portrait gallery of heroes, of examples, a posthumous tribute to 80 unidentified deceased architects that we can recognize if we know who they are. And we see that 72 of them at that point were men, and only 3 were non-white. In 2017, Carola Heim was the only woman with a full professorship at the architecture faculty of TU Delft. Now, in 2025, there are, I counted on the website, 15 women full professors towards 21 men. So there has been some repairing. But as you can see in this Dutch article, the TU Delft still is low in the ranking of having women full professors. So what we're going to talk about is what is the importance of women mentors, vrouwelijke leermeesters. Do students learn different things maybe from women mentors, women teaching in our universities and academies? And how important is it, in fact, for the women, the students, to have women role models? And what about that specific field of spatial design? Is the presence of women mentors vital, perhaps, to reach an inclusive, humane architecture and city planning? So what we're going to do today, and I'm going to sit down and we're going to have some fun conversations with guests that I invited. 3 generations of women that studied architecture that had women mentors. Sibil Sträuli, Elsbeth Ronner, Oktober, and afterwards we'll have a panel discussion, and I hope you will participate in this. So, first of all, I would like you to give a bit of an applause to Sibil Sträuli. So I think we will be using a microphone.
Good.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah, full house, yeah.
So, welcome, Sibil. I remember that we were talking about this exhibition, and I was telling you about the women that were featured in it. And as it turns out, there is a Swiss architect, Flora Rusciaconcati, who was the first full professor of the Eidgenössische Technische Hochschule in Zurich, where you studied. And then you told me you studied at the ETH, and she was one of your professors, right? So maybe we can first start with what it was like at that time at the ETH. Many women teachers, no women teachers at all. Tell us.
Thanks for the invitation. Yeah, you said it. I studied with Flora Risha. She was actually the mentor I chose for my final project. And how was it? It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I'm happy to represent the oldest of the 3 generations here. So it was really...
we have an image of you,
right? It was actually, yes, very long time ago. And this image, yes, it's funny. So you notice that I had quite some trouble to find some material because I had to go to dig in the analog archives, so it was really difficult. Nowadays I have thousands of pictures on my phone, but from that time I had almost no traces of how it was. I have it all in my memory because it was a great time. I enjoyed it very much. We were in Zurich, very nice group of students. It was a nice time. It was
messy.
it was very messy. That model came out quite badly. We had to redo it. It was really nice. We worked day and night, and every minute we were at work to produce whatever, and it was really very stimulating. These pictures were from a model making process for the final project, which was of Roncati, who was our tutor, and it was great. It was very nice, very inspiring. You know, you have to keep in mind, you see these very messy pictures, and we had quite a messy atelier, but it was still Zurich. It was a male dominant atmosphere and very strict usually. So, and we had a lot of deadlines. We have to do our final projects in 10 weeks. You have exactly the dates where you have the chance to talk for 30 minutes to your tutor, etc. So it was a strict environment, but funny.
Yes, and I guess Flora Roncati was one of the few women, or maybe the only one. Could you share with us what her teaching was like? What was she like as a professor?
Yeah, she was the only woman teacher, and she was very compared to the other professors. She was quite messy. Mm-hmm. She used to love sketches. She made herself a lot of sketches. She always said the sketches are the best tool for the architects, because you really have to concentrate on what's important, and you have to show only the important things, leave out all the rest of it. And her atelier was, as I said, by other teachers, it was seen as somehow the messy thing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a messy person at all. I'm very, I'm the opposite. But still, I really enjoyed it, because I think it's true. It's true that you have to concentrate on, you have to choose what's important.
And she was kind of famous, right, back then?
Yeah, she was kind of famous for her being a good architect, being, however, the Latin architect, mm-hmm. and woman. So also in the Zurich context, she spoke not so well German, mm-hmm. even though she was living there for many years. But she had this beautiful Italian accent, mm-hmm. and she was teaching. She was always late. She was smoking inside, and she was a kind of exception. And I liked her because she was teaching good things. She said it's important to feel the work, you have to see the material, you have to concentrate on the light, you have to, all things which I think are true.
Yeah, and I came across this scheme, and preparing this, I asked you if you knew this scheme, if she ever used it. It looked like something that she could make from your description of her. Does this speak to you? What does this scheme mean to you?
I didn't know the scheme, but I really much recognize the things she taught us. So the first thing is you have to look at things. You don't have to see things, you have to look at things. So you have to be aware of what you see. You don't have to just have your perception, but you have to understand what you see. And you have to work with your senses, so work with your eyes, work with your fingers, mm-hmm. work with your haptics, with your nose, with the air, with
a total experience, yes, of architecture.
But very sensitive. So you have to really concentrate on your senses, because that's something everybody has. Every human has mm-hmm. senses. So you have to exercise them. You have to be aware of them and use them.
And do you think, I mean, there were of course other professors at the ETH that taught there, that taught you. Can you explain us a bit about the differences and what this meant to you?
Yes, it was the time when Hans Kohlhoff was very big at the university. Maybe you don't even know who he is. So a long time ago, but Hans Kohlhoff was like the very important German architect who was very busy for rebuilding Berlin after the wall, etc. So it was quite a very important figure at the university, but of course he was very strict and very precise and very male, I would say.
Yeah.
And his teaching was very different from the one of Vrouwelijke.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you say male.
Yes,
It's very male. Can you elaborate on that?
I can. He's huge. He's very tall. But you know, you have this big, tall man with a strong voice who says exactly where you have to go. He has his assistants, which are all dressed alike, and they all walk behind him. So it's a kind of. He was a very clear leader who knew what he wants, who told you where to go, and everybody followed. And Vrouwelijke at stage, she was very cozy. She listened to you, she asked you, she wants to understand, so she wanted to involve you and to understand what her students were thinking. So I thought that was quite different.
Yeah. So you could say someone like Kohlhoff maybe didn't offer a lot of space for the students, whereas she did. She took quite a lot of space for herself. I understand that her lectures always were hours long, right?
Yes, that's true. No, I'm not saying that Kohlhoff was a bad teacher. I mean, it's also good if a teacher knows exactly what he wants, and the students can also go there to learn from him, to see what he can teach. You know, I mean, it's another kind of teaching. Yes, Vrouwelijke, except being always late and taking very long lectures, and you had some in the strict schedule of the ETH. She always took very much free time to, if you had a conversation with her and she liked it, she wanted to say this, and then she just went on. And it was good.
Did you know her work when she was teaching you?
Yes, I knew her work, but because we informed ourselves, or we knew it also from lectures. So we knew her work.
Did you feel a connection maybe with what she was doing as an architect?
Yes, I liked her work. I liked very much how she explained it. I liked it had sometimes very tiny aspects of very sensitive small details, and sometimes huge landscaping aspects that somehow connect one to the other, like very naturally. So she was talking a lot about the whole territory. So you have mountains, you have flatlands, you have the detailing of how the concrete is cast, and so it was all together, and I like that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's something that we were just discussing the exhibition before, and you see it a lot with the women that are featured here, that they work through the scales. So we call them urban designers, but they also pay attention to the smaller details. You asked her for your final project, Diplomarbeit, or whatever it's called. Why did you ask her?
Well, I had her in second year as a student, and then for the Diplomarbeit, you could choose with which professor you want to have it as a tutor. And I asked her because I knew her from second year. I liked her teaching, and I agreed to everything she says mainly. So I thought that's quite convenient. So I asked her, and it was turned out a good choice. Yes. And I somehow actually went on using her her teaching methods still today. So
Maybe first
Okay.
about
your project, because this was on a triangular plot, and she wasn't really enthusiastic about your plans at first, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's true. So this was our diploma project. It was on a triangular plot with a huge program, very complex, in the city of Zurich, actually on the lot of the Kalkbreite.
Yeah, maybe you
Where
know.
maybe now you know that there is quite a famous project standing of a friend of mine who did it. It's very nice that he did it. So it was a very complex program, and very complex lot, a very complex surrounding. And this here, which is here, this is a sketch of mine where I sketched mainly about the connections, how it's standing in the city, and like on the other side of there's a railway track on one side, on the other side some streets. There's some high-rise in the back, so I thought it's nice that this high-rise is somehow connecting to this one. So that's what I meant with sketching. It's always important because you point out the important things. You know, if you have renderings, I guess you all work with renderings, you have everything in it, you know. And whereas with sketches, you don't have everything, you have only the important things.
Right.
And that's one thing she taught me, and I think that's really true.
Analyzing to the bone.
Analyzing to the bone, and also here in this sketch, you see it's I offset it a little bit so you can still see the high-rise on the other side of the tracks, because that's an important part of the setting. Yeah, I must say I didn't look at my diploma work for I don't know how many years, but it was funny to take up again because Catja asked me if I had some work from that time, so I tried to find some things. So it was funny as I found these old schemes and old sketches. So there's the model with the program which is fixed. So and another sketch where you see the importance of the smaller part in front, which is really connecting to a crossing, a street crossing. And that crossing is also full of cables in the air. So I put them also in this. I didn't do this on purpose, but I noticed now that I went through it, that you sign all these cables because nobody would ever sign the cables, but they're actually important because they somehow bind that corner to the corner on the opposite side of the street, and they are important because they really physically pull that project to the city. And there you had some smaller program with small hotel shops, etc. And on the back side you have the high-rise, which talks to the high-rise on the other side.
Yeah, and I remember it's quite a complicated plot, right?
Yes,
that you chose. And she was you came up with this triangular floor plan, right? And she was like, no way.
No, that's true. You asked me, and it was true. I remember that at the beginning I had this triangle plot. I somehow filled it up. I filled it up with all sorts of different structures, different programs. And at the beginning she said, this is too complex, too messy. It's not. There's no order in it. No, you don't really see it. And then I showed her some reference pictures I found from Baroque inserts in cities, and where they're really inserted in the city, and you have the spaces inside which are more important, and the surrounding which is more important than the facade itself. And then she actually really liked it, and then she said, okay, go for it.
Yeah.
Go for it, and in the end it was quite a nice result, as I understand. So it was this freedom.
Yes, she
that
gave
made
us a lot of freedom. She gave us a lot of freedom. She gave us a lot of listening. So once she understood where I wanted to go, so she said, okay, then I understand that. That's nice. So try it.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that.
So the sketching, the taking time for things, were important, I think, in the way you were educated by her, the way she mentored you. You brought a project that you work on currently, or you have worked on, and it's funny because we were talking about how Rusha Rongati sort of influenced, if you see any influence in your work nowadays, and at first you didn't see it, but then you did, right?
Yeah, Catja, she convinced me. No, but it's true. I mean, she has said, how do you think you're influenced? I said, I don't know how I'm influenced. Then I went through the work we're doing now, and this is a refurbishment of a flat which we did last year. This is a sketch which is made by Vico Magistretti. He's a very good architect from the 60s from Milan. I live in Milan. He made this sketch of that project, and this is a picture of the tower as it stands today. You see in the sketch that there's this little tiny detailing that he wanted to have these open corners on the edges. So he has in the whole project there's windows on the corner windows, and you have these open windows. And then you see this are pictures from the inside that you actually always see from the inside, you see outside. And
This is a project that you did, huh?
yes,
Yep.
yes, this was finished last year. And you see also how important the material is, even the outside. You have these red window frames, which you think, okay, they are on the outside, but actually they're very visible from the inside.
Yep.
So it's always something which somebody might think, oh, it's only on the facade. No, it's not only on the facade, it's also inside. Because you don't look straight to the window, you always look in an angle, and you always see these little red details, and you see the concrete, how it is casted. You have these glass bricks and the vertical casting of the concrete. We took it up again inside in the tiling. We introduced also some glass bricks to divide some inside walls. We have a lot of small red details also on the inside because they go through the whole flat, and this is now something which we somehow took from the context. So it was not our choice to have red small details. It was at the end, but it was somehow given to us. And also there was this there was a lot of copper on the outside. So we also chose some detailing with tiling which fits well with the copper, so with the same color. And also we had to hire all the railing of the balconies because they were too low. So we had to make them higher. We introduced a small little open corner because it was as a homage to the Vico Magistretti. We said, okay, we give him back his little open corners, which is a nice small detail. And I think it's, I think maybe that was Flora Rischer would have appreciated it. She knew, I hope. And I appreciate her teaching me these things.
Yeah.
So the picture on the right is her in Mendrisio, where you also taught, and a lot of people from the TSV school were teaching. It must have been a couple of years before her death. And it's so nice to hear something about her teaching. So thank you so much.
She's a great woman. She is a great woman. She was and she still is.
Thanks. Okay.
Thanks.
So, sitting next to me now is Elsbeth Ronner. We're doing a bit of shifting with the chairs. Did you know Flora Rischer before I put her in the exhibition?
No, although I should have, because she was also in Oase.
Oh yeah.
But no, but it's nice that we get to know her work now.
Yeah, she was in Oase. For those of you that don't know Oase, it's a journal for architectural theory. And Elsbeth Ronner is in its editorial board. And I actually want to start off with that because you did an issue titled "The Architect as Public Intellectual." And this was kind of an undercover feminist operation. Can you explain this to us?
So first of all, we wanted to discuss the idea of architects being public people, taking up a role in public debates through writing, teaching, being part of the administration. But since those roles are usually connected to male figures, we also wanted to feature females to highlight other people that are probably lesser known within those roles.
Right. So you did this. You gave it the title "The Architect as Public Intellectual," and then you just featured like maybe I don't know how many women, but a lot of them. So that's interesting. These can be considered kind of your mentors, I guess. We're going to talk about them more, but just something that we often hear is, for example, if you're doing something like this, but also if you're making an exhibition or doing whatever, you have to choose on merits. Just choose architects that are good, and if they're women, that's fine, but you shouldn't choose them because they are women. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think that's a very problematic statement. Since implicitly again, it means that women are not as good as men, which is of course not the case. But yeah, I think it's just, so these are all, well, you couldn't say historic figures, but people from, let's say, the past, so they are lesser known, they're not in the archives, so it's just that we are not aware of their roles, of the work they did. That's what we are not aware of their functioning as a professional. That's why they're not considered as good, but that's not the reason, of course.
Yeah, you should stage them. That's what you were saying. So let's talk about this, because these women, they are not typical architects. They are architects that have an expansive with an A, a wide practice. How can you explain what this means to you? Are these women examples for you? Did they open your eyes? Maybe why are they important to you?
Well, maybe first of all, I consider architecture very much as a public profession. So as an architect, I think you have a wider responsibility towards society. I think it's shown in the exhibition also that it's to sort of construct a better world, which is maybe a bit naive, but this is really my idea of the profession. And so, even if it's building, like constructing a building, designing a building, going to the detail, you don't address only your clients, but you address a wider audience. And this wider audience is addressed, I think it can be addressed through multiple media or in many ways, and I think the women in this or in this issue, they take up different roles to, let's say, enact this public role. So either by being a public administrator or a critic or a part of the actual embassy, sharing architecture from a certain country. So I think it's very much in my vision how an architect should see his or her profession, and that's why these women are in the journal or in the
and that's why you regard them in a way as mentors, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So architectural work, you say, is not just, it's a lot already, but it's not just designing and building, it's also sharing knowledge, it's also staging work, it's also theory, it's also writing, teaching, and so on. So let's talk a bit about the women mentors that were physically present in your world. You studied in Delft in the 2000s. There weren't many women, we know this from my introduction, but do you remember any women from that time teaching?
Well, yes, it's. I was actually shocked by your figures because it was noticeable, but I have to say it was not really a subject. So there were a few figures, female teachers that stood out, and well, it immediately also made them very special, actually. But very few. I know they are on the slide, so the first one I want to mention is Lada Schrijver. She was not a professor at that time. I think in my first or second year, she gave history and theory lectures. And what the body of knowledge that she presented to us it was very remarkable. So it was very impressive. Maybe would be nice to share this anecdote. Deborah Hartman was also one of those few females. On the left, there's Lada Schrijver in an orange dress. And apparently she told you that this was the dress that got her through her 3 pregnancies. And one memory, very vivid memory I have of her is her being in front of the biggest lecture hall. So you must imagine it's like 400 or like 500 students giving these history classes, standing there.
3 hours?
Yeah, with a huge belly. So also, like, at the time, I don't think I was it was a very conscious awareness that I do have to think back to it, like, nowadays a lot. To see, as we spoke about, like, to see this authority whilst being pregnant, which is like a beautiful image.
Right. So there's this young woman lecturing, very pregnant. I think it's a very strong image because it also speaks about this really visceral reality of being a woman, right? So the female body goes through monthly menstruations, pains. It carries children sometimes. It gives birth. It feeds. It goes through all kinds of hormonal changes. It experiences this hormonal reset of menopause with all its problems. And yet, someone like Lara was fitting herself into this male mold of, if you're going to lecture, you're standing here for 3 hours, right? How do you feel about that?
Well, thinking back about it, maybe I have mixed feelings. So indeed, that's what we expect from women. Okay, you're pregnant, but you cannot complain. You just have to do your job. I mean, you're healthy. Why not? But then again, as I said, it was like apart from what you would wish for, like a chair or whatever, I mean, it was still impressive to have this very smart person being both like a very apparent woman, a very young woman, but then still like having all the knowledge presented to you.
Right.
So it could be done.
Yeah, it can be done.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of your other mentors. Because you worked at an office called Sub Office with these two people, Lieke Belsma and Eireen Schreurs. Eireen, you knew from university. They were also important for you in this multifaceted practice, right?
Yeah, so what I would say what characterizes their work is that they, well, Eireen mainly teaches at the TU Delft still. Lieke, she works at a governmental institute, and together they also do work on architectural projects. But maybe I'm not sure if it's different now. But at that time, while studying during, let's say, the super Dutch period with people like Winnie Maas, Ben van Berkel, etc., like it was still. Yes, but you are mentioning those names. Those were not the names that were mentioned to me at the time. So indeed, very much Lisbeth van der Pol. We can mention them now, but still, this figure of an architect was this dominant male architect working day and night. The work sub-office did was much different. So it is. It was like a little architectural, like small architectural interventions. A lot of research, a lot of not participatory projects, but listening very closely to what is there, being very observative. So I wrote down maybe non-judgmental, taking what is there and then like very closely looking at it, analyzing. Well, super Dutch is of course, okay, here I am with my brilliant idea and I put it down there. Well, take it or leave it. So it was a very different idea of what architecture could be.
Yeah. What is this? What are we looking at?
Oh, yeah, it's on the screen. So this is a project I worked on through summer. It's a newspaper that we made based on an analysis we did in Zuidwijk, Rotterdam. Where you could say that we took over some sort of methods of Venturi, Schultbrouw and Eisenhower. So we looked closely at the sort of signs in the neighborhoods, the daily use within the neighborhoods. So the project was first to analyze the neighborhood before intervening in it.
Yes, so this was a type of work that you were interested in. It was an approach that was brought to you by them and that you enjoyed and that opened your eyes. You were also interested in, when we're talking about, let's call them paper mentors, so this is one of them. And I showed this image of Dolores Hayden, who asked herself the question, what would a non-sexist city look like? She could have been in the exhibition. Because she did another project that I want to briefly mention before we go to the next guest, so maybe you can explain a bit about that. You did it with Anne Dessing, right?
Yes. Well, maybe it's good to say that both Lade Stijver and Lieke Belsma and Eireen Schreurs, they were also editors in the OAS journal, so that is also a sort of direct mentorship. Dolores Hayden, in 1980, she wrote an essay called What Would a non-sexist city be like? Both criticizing contemporary American urban design with the spreading suburbs and proposing also an alternative. So she analyzed these suburbs as, how to say, well, non-equal for females. So the
Matriarchic.
you could say. So the females, the women, they were bound to these suburbs, while the men would go to work in the city centers. And then, well, the women, they didn't have any, let's say, escape outside these environments.
And the connection with this
Yes,
project?
we have to be quick. Well, it is still the case. In architecture, we like to talk about the cities, but the large part of our built environment is still constructed outside cities. So by Atelier Rijksbouwmeester, we were asked to reconsider office spaces of governmental institutes after, let's say, the COVID crisis. And what we still see today is that these offices are placed in, of course, the city centers, the Hague city, while the people, they live in Waddinxveen, in Gouda. So what do you do? So this was the case, on the left you see Dolores Heden, now this is the case today. So while women also work at these offices, they still carry the load of taking care of the family, of a neighbor, of whoever. So how do you do this when you have to go to talk to the teacher of your kids at 2 in the afternoon while you work in the city center of The Hague? It's impossible. So still large parts are based on this idea of what you could say the sexist city. So what we propose is a different way of working, a different working environment that is more inclusive in relation to taking care of people.
Yeah, and in a way you could say it's also sexist to assume that men will not go to the 2 o'clock meeting at the school. My husband would, but I don't know. I know not every husband does.
Totally true, but the graphs, the numbers say differently.
Yeah. So some paper women mentors, some real life women mentors that are basically gave you the space and the opportunity to observe and to develop this multifaceted practice, right? Okay, great, thank you. So our last guest, before we go to the panel conversation, Britt Optenberg, our youngest guest. How do you feel sitting here?
It's a pleasure, thank you. Thanks for the invitation, Catja. It's nice to see it in 3 generations, and it's special to be here.
Yeah.
So you studied at the MBO. What was it? Yeah, St. Lucas Design, I think. Yes, and interior design. And then you went to Maastricht, and in the end you considered going to the academy, right? But this was in 2021, I believe. This wasn't a straightforward decision for you. Can you explain?
Yes, I can. I studied in total 12 years, and I started at St. Lucas for 4 years. Then I went to the bachelor's in Maastricht, and after that I was completely done with it. But yeah, I want to be an architect, and in Holland you have to do the master's. But then it was 4 years again, studying in school and do some work on the side of it. So I was not sure if I'm gonna do it. And then one of my teachers, Sarah Meegang, was telling me, let's have a chat in the weekend. So we have a FaceTime conversation. And she was asking me what was the reason why you don't want to do the masters.
Yeah, because you already had some experience in architecture, right? Because I wanted to show this image of the office that you worked at Brouwer. That was also part of your doubt, right? You knew what the architect's life would be like. What would the architect's life be like?
Yeah, I did my internships during my bachelor's by Bureau Europa, and it was a very man-doing office. You see me standing on the left side, and you see still some women. But the start of Bureau Europa was from Jos Bedo. Jos Bedo is starting the office. After that, his son Per was taking over it, and after that, their son Thomas and Peter take over the office. So it's a very man-showed office for me before I started my master's.
Right, and a lot of hard work. Yeah, right. So you were telling us earlier about Sarah Meegang, who is one of the people teaching at the academy, right? She did this special thing, right? She saw that you weren't sure, and then she set up this online meeting on a Saturday. Yeah. So what was that conversation like?
It was very special that she was making time for me in the weekend, and we have a conversation about what was the reason why I'm not sure to gonna do the masters, and she was asking me, is it because you're a woman and because you're 24 years now, but when you are ending your masters you will be 28. And for a woman it is maybe not a story to be to getting old and make choices in your life. And I had a really open conversation with her to think about it.
She asked you, are you planning to have children, right?
Yeah, and that question was for me a very clear one, because that was not the reason that I don't want to start with a master's, but it was a thing after that, and when I spoke to Catja, I'm not sure if anybody would ask this kind of questions to a man who is struggling with starting the masters. And for me, it was a really nice conversation with Sarah and a really clear one. But I think it's for women, it's a difficult decision to do some studies when you're getting older.
Yeah, that's the reality that we just talked about with Elsbeth as well. Yes, so of course it's also a decision that men have in their lives, but it is more directly involving women, and for you it touched a nerve, right? That she asked you this question, made you wonder. And do you think that women architects and designers are perhaps also more involving life in its entirety in their work as teachers, but maybe also their work as designers?
Yeah, I think so. I think they are very knowing about the way how they standing in their life and how they will teach to younger students. I think so.
But it's not that the male teachers are okay too.
No.
But there is a difference in perspective, you would say?
Yeah, I think so.
So, talking about Sarah Meegang, I know, I'll show her image. There she is. And this is one of her works. Yeah. Maybe a few words about that.
Yeah. Sarah Meegang is one of our teachers in my, I think in my master's, I'm not sure, she's also teaching in the bachelor's. But she's one of my woman mentors the last 4 years. And this is one of her projects. She has a company with her man in Belgium. And what I really like of this project is the transition zone, the zone in between the house of the people and the landscape around it. And what I really like is that you, when you're sitting there, that you can have a look to your child who are playing there and have some control, but also have a place where people can meet each other. It's the zone in between the private and the open area, the public space.
Yeah, so these are things that of course she also taught at the academy that were valuable to you. I have a fun image of you with your co-students. So this is more or less the situation that you ended it this year, right?
Yeah, this
Yeah, congratulations. Sarah Meegang also organized Thursday evening lectures, right? And there she programmed women as well, as I understand. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, Sami Hank is preparing the lectures on the Fridays and the Thursdays, and she invites a lot of women. I'm not sure if Sarah wasn't doing that, if all of these women were coming to the academy. And one of them are Oana Bogdan. And what I really like of her lecture was she makes really strong buildings, and really she does really serious projects. And she showed the right picture, and I really liked the way how she was standing there like a woman with high heels, very colorful clothes, in a really strong building that she designed.
So bringing your womanhood into your profession as an architect, that's and also another person that lectured in this series was Tini Verwerft.
Yeah, Tini Verwerft was also one of the lecturers. She worked for Murmur, and yeah, she was more telling her story with words and not that loud, but yeah, the right words at the right moment. And yeah, it's still in my mind that it's not it's not important to be the loudest one on the table. Some men sometimes will be doing that. A woman as well.
Yeah.
But she was telling them that it's important to use the right words at the right moment and not only the loudest one.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go to another mentor of yours, if I can get her back. Yes, on the left side. She's also in this room, right?
Yeah. She is. Teske van Rooyen, I think she is in my life now for 8 years because she was there when I started my bachelor's, and she was also there when I ended my master's. And I spoke a lot with her about architecture, but also a private situation. And yeah, I think Teske is really one of my woman mentors in my career until now.
Yeah, because you told me this story, or this happens all the time. I speak to a lot of women architects, where you're in a situation, there's some kind of technical discussion going on, and then someone says to you as a young woman, "Oh dear girl, och meisje." You spoke about this kind of situation with Teske, right?
Yeah, that happens a lot of times, and this was a thing that it was during my master's. So I was sitting on a table only with men, and I'm a younger person, and we spoke about the cost of the building, and we choose some materials, and they changed the materials in their calculation. So I was telling them, it's not the right one. And then they said, "Ach, meisje."
Yeah.
And,
But Teske knows this kind of situation.
yeah, Teske knows this kind of situations. And yeah, you have to deal with it, but it's not the way how it should be worked.
Right.
So that's helpful to be able to talk to someone who has the same experience. I don't know if she likes it, but I think she's called the mother of the academy. Where are you, Teske? Somewhere in the back, right? The mother of the academy. I was wondering, I had some mixed feelings with this term, because it's nice, it's beautiful, but it's also this specific kind of nurturing nature that we connect with women. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, for me it's a positive thing, because I think, but it's more than only the word. I think the word is not the right one to choose for what Teske is for the academy. But yeah, she does a lot for the students, and yeah, in my terms, mother is a good thing, but maybe it's too flat for everything she does.
Right. So let's end with these two offices because right now you work at Werkstad. It's an Eindhoven office. You started with Bureau Europa. There is more than one woman that you worked with at Bureau Europa. We could say that Joyce Versteijen has been important to you. Why was that? What did you learn from her?
Joyce Versteijen I was working with her at Bureau Europa, and I think she's very important to me because it was my first experience in the architectural world. So it's very nice to have some women next to you who are older and I think it's nice for women that you can reflect yourself to women who are doing the same job as you want to do. But I think it's also important for men to have a man role model to see how they take their stuff.
Yeah, so maybe a different way of holding a conversation, of directing a project. So now you work at the Werkstad, amongst others with Floor Frings. So you told me this story about how you sometimes go on the road together for projects, and then you come back and sometimes you have a laugh in the car. Why is that?
Yeah, sometimes, as I said, we sit on the table with a lot of men, and I'm not that kind of tall, and Floor is smaller than I am. So sometimes we sit on a table and the men are really loud and really telling a lot of their stories, and Floor and I just listening and say the right words at the right moments, and sitting in the car back to the office and
Have a laugh.
have a laugh.
Yeah.
So that's I guess something that you picked up on from your mentors. So thank you very much for talking to us. Yeah, let's have a glass of water. Who pours? I have my hands full. Sorry. Is there someone in the audience that maybe has a question for one of our speakers? Yes, go ahead. Maybe you can stand up, if you don't mind.
I would like to why we emphasize a lot that we talk about women, and not about them being amazing architects, tutors, with a lot of passion, sensitivity, expertise.
Yeah.
Instead of putting a lot of emphasis on the fact that they are women.
Yeah.
Because now we're talking about women architects, but I mean every day as we are on the table with a lot of female engineers, female contractors. Like I think there are a lot of clients also, there are a lot of aspects within our job. But maybe that's question also to myself maybe.
Yeah, I understand. So maybe what you're asking is, do we need
Why are we
to?
not talking about equality?
Yeah. So that's a bit connected to what we spoke about, Elsbeth. So maybe would you care to react?
Well, yes. In the ideal situation that we would be all equals, I would say yes, we have to address quality mainly. But since it is still the male figure that has his dominance in the debate, in the magazines, on the blogs, I think we have to address the work of these women, of the sensitivity, of the other way of teaching, of their mentorship. So yes, we should talk about the quality, but before that we have to discuss, well, let's say their specificity, the other aspects to their work.
Yeah.
and maybe just their presence, right? Because you know, I'm really glad if someone speaks about a situation in which there are enough women sitting in. You know, you speak with women contractors, women architects, and so on. But as long as we have a hallway at our most important institute for architecture, or at least the biggest one, which features mainly male architects, it is a situation in which we simply don't know all the quality that we want to talk about, just because we don't know these women, right? And we're not just talking about today, but also women in history. Sibil?
Yes, I think it will never really be equal, but I think we women, we should not want to be men. I don't know. We should not try to be equal as the men. We are different.
Yeah.
We are better. So I think it's something which enriches the world somehow, no? And I think it should be seen as that. I mean, even a good, also good boss should recognize that if he has more women, not because he has to add the equality of the percentage, but because women, they can bring other things to the work, which is very, very useful and very precious. And I think maybe we have to emphasize on that.
Yeah.
I was wondering, Britt, if you have any questions for the other two, because you were listening in, of course. Do you?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, I graduated last year, and for me it is still, I'm still searching the way how I want to be an architect in this world. And yeah, as you can see in the presentation, there are a lot of role models. But when you was ending your school period, what was for you the most powerful thing you was taking with you?
The most powerful thing, I mean, I just graduated and I wanted to work and I wanted to do things and I wanted to do a lot of things. I must say, we often also at that time already talk about women architects and male architects, and then during work, of course, when you're in an office, then there is always a bit male boss, of course, and sometimes also female. But now in my office, I must say I go to the construction sites and I don't work with male architects or female architects. I work with plumbers, electricians, carpenters. I mean, they are completely all men. I mean, that's not even near to be a change in that in those fields. And maybe sometimes there's a female engineer. So, but I think it's okay. I mean, yeah. As you sometimes laugh when you drive back in the car, I do the same. You know, also on the construction side, I'm like, I work with my husband. He's called the architect, and I'm called Sibil. You know, like, oh, Sibil, can you show me this? And, I mean, they don't do that on purpose, but it's just
The
like,
way how
it's
works.
just like this. That's a bit. And then I say, okay, it's okay. They respect me. Then when I show the things, they know that they notice that I know the things and I explain what I know. But still, I'm Sibyl. He is the architect. Then okay.
So I was wondering, because we're thinking about, you know, we're talking about different examples and also the paper examples, the paper mentors or the mentors that are further away. Everybody will think of Zaha Hadid, of course, as the power woman that wouldn't have it any other way than her way. Does she serve at all as an example, maybe Elsbeth, as a strong woman?
It's interesting that you're bringing it up, but maybe to give some context, when I graduated, as you showed, Vrouwen studies, female studies, it was just dismantled, so it was really not a subject. It was really not something that was being discussed. Well, I mean, 50%, when I studied, also 50% was female. 50% of the students. But then, yeah, so indeed, she was one of the guys. She was like, of course, she was like Rem Koolhaas, but then like the London Rem Koolhaas. Yeah, so in that sense, it was also not really an example, because I think it was not a subject, but then I think it was also clear that it was not, it didn't have a future, this way of working. Yeah, neither for men nor for women. And I'm very glad that well, as you call it, the fourth wave, I'm very glad that generations after me, they, well, let's say they stirred up this conversation.
So there's no tapping into your inner Zaha. No? Okay. Any other questions from the room? Yes, please, go ahead.
It was very nice to hear everything about the past, but what would you like to bring for the future?
Good question. Maybe I ask the youngest one. What will you bring for the future? As a woman mentor yourself.
Oh, that's a good question, because I don't see myself that way now. Yeah, I hope I can show them that it is normal to be a woman in this world, and yeah, to bring our powerful woman qualities into the architectural choices you can make, and explain them, and use the right words on it, and yeah.
So, and Sibil, we of course talked about the power of observation, the power of taking time, the power of sketching, of slowness. Is that something that you consider that would be something that you would like to bring to next generations?
It would be nice. I don't know if I have the power to do that, but I think yes. I think the world needs to somehow slow down if you want to become more female in a way. Mainly because we are so overloaded with technology, also in teaching, in using, in work, but we should be aware that all this technology, within 5 years, it's obsolete, it's already old. So there's no way to keep up with that. Yeah. And I think, indeed, also, you don't really know anymore what is true, what is not true, what is... and I think that's the moment when you come back to your senses. Yeah. Because what I see is what I think is true, or what I believe, or what I feel, and I think maybe that's, I do indeed think that and hope that this is slowly taking back the life of everybody.
Yeah. I was turning around because I was getting the scheme of Flora Rocha Roncati about getting back to your senses. And what about, Elsbeth, you teach, does the multifaceted practice of an architect that doesn't just design but also makes newspapers or writes scenery, is that of importance in your teaching?
Well, yes, definitely. I think to to understand architecture as a sort of wide profession, expensive. Maybe to link it to the idea of whether women bring something else to the table. I don't think it's really that we work differently or I mean, men can be empathetic or whatsoever, so men can design this space where kids can play. But I think to bring in all these kind of voices in architecture, either through designing or through writing, through making exhibitions, I think that is very important to show that architecture is not only this very limited idea of what an architect could be or could. It is one, it can be. I mean, it can be that you are this kind of architect, but it can be also like a different architect, and that it's valued in that way. Also, when graduating, also in this idea how we teach our students, that it's valuable that people have strong research skills and maybe the design skills what are of a lesser quality. I mean, it's okay because they have other talents. To have different talents in the room, because as an architect or as whomever, you will never work on your own. So you always have a lot of people around the table. So you need all these talents. I think that is very important.
Yeah, so it's also this kind of networked reality that we see with the urbanists in this exhibition that in my research I have found to be typical for women architects, whether as mentors or just as acting architects. Maybe another issue. Do we, because we're talking about men and women like they're different or they have different needs or they need different things, but in the end it's about a complete practice, right? So are women mentors role models for women solely, or are they important role models for men as well? How do you see that?
I think they are very important for both of them, as well for women as well for men, because I can learn a lot of male mentors, and I think also the other way around. Both of them have their own qualities, and you can. It's the way how you want to reflect yourself into that kind of person.
We're all so serious. Any questions from the room? Maybe for one of those, this is your chance to ask Sibil Sträuli about building in Milan. Want to get off topic? Nobody? Well then, maybe I would just like to close off by thanking you all for making the time for these conversations, sharing your experiences on having women mentors, physical women mentors, but also women mentors in history, women mentors in a distance. It doesn't mean that you don't have any male mentors and that they are not of importance, but the specific lessons to be learned, to offer a space for that, I think is very important, and I hope we did that today, and I enjoyed it, and thank you very much. There's drinks, I think.
No.
Oh, there's no drinks.
Sorry.
No drinks.